Hello my dear students, myself Dr. Pitambar Umne, founder Botany for You and working as Associate Professor and Head Department of Botany, Dharampet MP Dev Memorial Science College, Nagpur, Maharashtra, India. I welcome you all in this online platform for the students of Life Sciences Botany for You. Friends, if you have not yet subscribed our YouTube channel or you are new to this YouTube channel, then kindly like, share and subscribe our YouTube channel for the alerts of different lectures in life sciences. In last two lectures on this paper, that is plant ecology, techniques and utilization of plants for the semester 6 botany 2. So the both units were on plant ecology, and today we are going to see the MCQ type of the question based upon third unit of this paper, and this include the techniques or the biophysical methods or the biophysical techniques. If you are interested to associate with us through Telegram group, then the link of the Telegram group is given in the description as well as in the comments, so that you can come to know the different lectures which are uploaded on our YouTube channel as well as the programs organized by this online platform. In this unit, that is third unit, there is different topic, and this is from the techniques in biology or the life sciences. This includes principle, types and application of microscopy, that is light microscopy, fluorescent microscopy, transmission electron microscopy and scanning electron microscopy. Then centrifugation, electrophoresis, that is sodium dodecyl sulfate polyacrylamide gel electrophoresis and agarose gel electrophoresis. Then spectroscopy, that is ultraviolet and the visible light. Then chromatography, which includes again the two types, that is the paper chromatography and thin layer chromatography. So today we will see the different MCQs based on this unit of the paper 2 of semester 6 botany syllabi of RTM Nagpur University, Nagpur. Even this lecture will be useful to the other students from other universities where this topic is included in the UG and PG syllabi of the different life sciences subject, as it is common to all the subjects of the life sciences. So the first question, that is the ratio of diameter of lenses of its focal length is referred as. So if we see the focal length, it is nothing but the ability of the system to converge or the diverge the light. If it is responsible for the convergence of the light, then it is known as the positive focal length, and if it is responsible for the divergence of the light in the system, then it is known as the negative focal length. And this focal length of the lenses is basically responsible to increase the size under the microscope, and hence such a type of the system or the ratio of this diameter of the lenses to its focal length is known as the magnification, and hence the A is the answer for this one. Then the ability to reveal closely adjacent points as separate and distinct is. Whenever we are talking about the resolution of any microscope, so we can say that it is responsible for the separation of the 2 points which are closely associated with each other, and hence the correct answer for this question will be the resolution. And the numerical aperture is nothing but the ability to gather the light by the lenses, which is not related to that of the ability to reveal closely adjacent point, and hence it is not the answer. And earlier we have seen magnification as in the question number 1. Then question number 3, that the blank space controls the intensity of light entering in the microscope. If we see the simple or the light microscope, then there is a presence of mirror. Above the mirror, there is a presence of diaphragm and then condenser, and above which we are keeping our plant or the animal material, which is to be observed under the microscope. So from the mirror there is a illumination of the light, or the light is irradiated, and later on this light can be adjusted with the help of diaphragm, and then condenser, it is responsible to collect or gather this light to pass through the material which is to be observed. And hence here all these three are used for the control of intensity of light entering the microscope, and hence all the above becomes the answer for this question. Which of the following is used in electron microscope? If we see the electron microscope or the complete assembly of the electron microscope, then there is a utilization of the electron beam, and along with it there is a utilization of the magnetic fields, so that there is a formation of the clear image of the object, and hence both A and B becomes the answer for this question. The electron microscope can give a magnification up to. So usually if we compare the light microscope to that of the electron microscope, then thousands of times more magnification is there to that of the electron microscope. And we have to remember that here the A1, that is the 400,000x, is the correct magnification of the electron microscope. Then which of the following are true for electron microscopy? If we see the electron microscopy, then in electron microscopy the specimen should be thin and dry. Thin because the electron beams can pass through it very easily. Then image is obtained on a phosphorescent screen, so this is also the correct one. Then the electron beam must pass through the evacuated chamber, that is the vacuum chamber. So all these three are the correct statement with respect to that of the electron microscopy, and hence all the above becomes the answer for this question. Then degree of scattering in transmission electron microscope is function of. So if we see the TEM, that is the transmission electron microscopy, then here the wavelength of electron beam is used, then number of atoms that lie in the electron path, then number and mass of atoms that lie in the electron path, and mass of atom that lie in the electron path. So if we see these different things, then here all are used in the transmission electron microscope. But here the question is asked the degree of scattering, and that degree of scattering is completely dependent upon the mass of atoms that lie in the electron path, and hence it becomes the answer for this question. The negative staining is used for examining. Usually the negative staining is used for the very small particles. So the virus particles, protein molecules, and the bacterial flagella, these are the very much tiny and the small particles which cannot be observed under the light microscope. So such a type of the particles which cannot be observed in the light microscope can be observed or can be viewed in TEM and the SEM, and where there is a utilization of the negative staining, and hence here all the above becomes the answer for this question. Then which among the following helps us in getting three-dimensional picture of the specimen? If we see the three-dimensional picture of the specimen, so it is a characteristic feature of the scanning electron microscopy, and hence the scanning electron microscopy, which is responsible to find out the complete outermost part of the object with respect to its topography, and hence the scanning electron microscopy is a correct answer for this question. The secondary electrons radiated back in scanning electron microscope is collected by, when the electron beam passes through, at that time some of the electrons are radiated back, they are known as the secondary electrons. If we see these secondary electrons, then usually these secondary electrons are collected by the anode, hence it is answer. Then on what factors do the intensity of secondary electrons depends upon? If we see the intensity of the secondary electrons, then the different factors which are responsible are, that is the shape and chemical composition of the irradiated object, because these electrons are radiated from the object. Then number of electrons ejected, that is also responsible to find out the intensity. Then number of electrons ejected and reabsorbed by surrounding, and hence all these three are responsible to find out the intensity of secondary electrons, and hence all the above becomes the answer for this question. Then where do we obtain the magnified image of specimen in SEM, that is the scanning electron microscopy? So if we see the construction of the scanning electron microscopy, then you will find that here the image is magnified, and that is on the cathode ray tube, and hence it is the correct answer. When phosphorescent screen, then here the image of TEM is formed. So we can remember this also for some other type of the questions. Then resolving power of a microscope is function of. If we see the resolving power of the microscope, then it is completely dependent upon the wavelength of light which is used in the microscope. In addition to that, the numerical aperture of the lens, or it is also known as the refractive index. So both these are responsible for the microscope for the resolving power, and numerical aperture is nothing but the ability of the lens to gather the light, and hence both these are used for the resolving power of the microscope. Then which of the following techniques are used in transmission electron microscopy for examining the cellular structure? So in transmission electron microscopy, there is utilization of the negative staining, then shadow casting, and ultra thin sectioning also. The negative staining is responsible to enhance the light. Then shadow casting is responsible for the increase in the three-dimensional view of the object, and again the ultra thin sectioning is responsible to pass the electron beam easily, and hence all the above becomes the answer for this question. Then which part of the compound microscope helps in gathering and focusing light rays on the specimen to be viewed. So if you see the simple compound microscope that everyone has seen, and in which there are the different, that is the eyepieces, objective, condenser and magnifying lens. So the objective lens and the eyepiece both are the magnifying lens because they are responsible for the magnification of the object under the microscope. And if you see the condenser is responsible for the gathering of the light, so that the maximum amount of the light can pass through the specimen for the better magnification or the view. And hence, if you see this question, that which part of the compound microscope help in gathering and focusing the light rays, so this gathering the light ray is a characteristic feature of the condenser, and the rest of these, that is the eyepiece and the objective, are responsible for the magnification. The greatest resolution in the light microscopy can be obtained with, if you see the resolution of the light microscope, then an objective with the minimum numerical aperture. If you see or compare the 10x objective with that of the 45x objective, then you will find that here the numerical aperture of the 45 is greater. So in this way, that is known as the refraction index also. So that is one of the factor which is responsible for the greatest resolution. Then shortest wavelength of the visible light, and that is also responsible for the better views of the object under the light microscope, and hence both A and B becomes the answer for this question. Then oil immersion objective lens has been an NA, that is numerical aperture value of. If you see the numerical aperture value for the air, it is 1.0, and if we see the numerical aperture value of the oil, then it is 1.56. So the oil immersion objective lens, when is used in the microscope, then this value must be in between these two, that is 1 and 1.56, and hence here if you see these different values, the most appropriate value which is present in between the 1 and 1.56, that is the 1.33, which is used as a oil immersion objective lens. In fluorescence microscopy, which of the following performs the function of removing all light except the blue light? So here the elicitor or exciter filter is responsible for the removing all the light except the blue light, because if we see this blue light in the fluorescent microscopy, then it is avoided by the barrier filter, and hence rest of the filters are not allowing the blue light, and hence the exciter filter is responsible to allow the blue light except the rest of the light, and hence it is a answer for this question. Then total magnification is obtained by, so the magnifying power of the objective lens, first one, and the magnifying power of eyepiece. So you have seen the microscope, here there is a presence of the eyepiece at this point, and here there are the objective lenses. So if we see the any of magnification, actually it is the multiplication of both these lenses, and hence the objective lens and eyepiece both are together responsible for the magnification in the microscope, and hence both A and B becomes the answer for this question. In light microscopy, which of the following is used as a fixative prior to the staining technique? We are talking about the light microscopy. So, here the most appropriate answer is hit, because in a light microscopy the osmic acid and the glutaraldehyde are not commonly used in the light microscopy, but in other form of the light microscopy they are used. Then which part of the light microscope controls the intensity of light entering the viewing area? So, if we see the complete construction of the simple compound microscope or the light microscope, then you will find that here the diaphragm is there in between the condenser and the mirror, and this diaphragm having the adjustment which is responsible to control the penetration of the light into the condenser, and hence the diaphragm is the correct answer for this question. Then which of the following centrifugation is used to separate the certain organelles from whole cell? If you see the different cell organelles, they have the different density or the size, and hence such a type of the particles are separated in the centrifuge with the help of differential centrifugation. Then after centrifugation, when sublimate settles the clear liquid, you know, when we have to use the centrifuge, there is a development of the centrifugal force and we are using the tubes. So, when we are taking any liquid in the centrifuge tube, and because of the development of the centrifugal force in the centrifuge, here the solid particles are settled down at the bottom, and this is known as the sublimate, and above it there is a presence of the clear liquid. So, when we are talking about these two things after the centrifugation, here the clear liquid can be decanted off. Very commonly we are using this experiment in the chlorophyll separation and even in the other enzymatic experiments. After centrifugation, sublimates, if you see what we have to do with the sublimate. So, this sublimate is present here and it settled at the bottom, and hence it becomes now the answer for this question. Then which of the following is an effective way of purifying liquids containing the suspension? If there are the suspension in any liquid material, then it can be separated or it can be settled down with the help of centrifugal force by centrifuging it in the centrifuge machine, and hence centrifugation becomes the correct answer for this question. The differential centrifugation relies, as we have seen earlier, on differences in the biological particles of having the different density. Just we have seen that the different cell organelles which are present in the plant as well as the animal cell having the different density, and because of that we can separate them with the help of differential staining, and hence the density is one of the answer. But at the same time the size is also playing an important role with respect to the development of the centrifugal force in the centrifuge, and even the sedimentation rate is depend upon the density as well as the size of the particles which are to be separated, and hence all the above becomes the answer for this question. Then how does centrifugation work? So, if you see, through dripping particles, then through spinning, then by keeping the large particles in the center and smaller on the outside, and by separating the particles into the different tubes. There is always separation of the material in the same tube, so the last one is wrong one. Through dripping particles, there is not such type of the any method of the dripping in the centrifuge, and through spinning we are spinning, but here the such type of the spinning is not used in the centrifuge. So the what does here, when we are keeping this test tube in the centrifuge, the force acting from the center to the periphery, and that is known as the centrifugal force. And because of that, here the larger particles are present in the center, while the smaller particles are present to the peripheral or the outer side, and hence it is the correct answer with respect to the centrifugation work. Then who invented centrifugation? So you should name or remember this name of the lady, that is Antonin Prandtl, who have discovered the centrifuge machine. What is use of density gradient centrifugation? Just earlier we have seen that the centrifugal force is developed in the centrifugation, and here it is separated according to its density. So to purify the viruses, then ribosomes and the membranes, so this can be carried out with the help of density gradient centrifugation. Then to remove the fine particles, so such type of the system of the removal of the fine particles in the centrifuge is not possible. Then even to remove the large particles, so this is also not possible because they are settled in a different places in the centrifuge tube with respect to their density, and hence the centrifuge is useful to purify the viruses, ribosomes and even the membranes with respect to their density. Then what is the applications of centrifugation? To separate two miscible substances and analyze the hydrodynamic properties of the macromolecules. So this is the correct answer with respect to the applications of the centrifugation. Then ethidium bromide is stain that specifically binds to DNA or RNA and appears if viewed under ultraviolet light. So we should remember this answer, that there is a development of the orange color when the ethidium bromide is used as a stain and when viewed under the ultraviolet light. Then which of the following is the most preferred buffer condition for the agarose gel electrophoresis? In agarose gel electrophoresis, when we are using the buffer solution, then it should be the neutral, and hence the buffer solution with the 7 pH must be used in the agarose gel electrophoresis. In electrophoresis, the DNA will migrate towards. If you see the DNA is negatively charged, and hence it will migrate towards the positively charged structures or the conditions. So hence it will be migrate to the positively charged electrodes. Then which of the following factors will not affect the rate of migration of DNA in agarose gel? See here, not affect the rate of migration. So the gel concentration is one of the important factor. Then DNA conformation, because it will affect on the density of the DNA molecule or the molecular weight of the DNA, and even the decrease or increase in the voltage is also affect the rate of the migration of the DNA. But if we see the concentration of the DNA, then there will not be any effect on the rate of the migration, because this concentration is not related to that of the migration, because its migration is completely dependent upon its concentration, molecular weight, density, etc., as well as the current which is passes through the electrophoretic apparatus, and hence the DNA concentration is not affect the rate of migration of the DNA in the agarose gel. Then which of the following statements about the agarose gel electrophoresis is false? Keep in mind this, we are asking the question that is the false one, means which are the correct one. So electrophoresis in agarose is a common way to separate the DNA molecules according to the size, and this is the correct statement. Then ethidium bromide is used to detect the DNA, as earlier we have seen there is a development of the orange color when it is observed under the ultraviolet light. So this is also the correct one. Then under the influence of the electrical field, positively charged DNA, see now, positively charged DNA will migrate towards the negatively charged end of the gel. The DNA is not positively charged, it is negatively charged, and hence it is wrong or the false, and none of the above, and hence our answer for this question becomes C. Then sodium dodecyl sulfate used in the SDS page is, so we should remember this, that the SDS is an anionic detergent, and hence it is the correct answer for this question. Then for the separation of DNA by electrophoresis, which of the following method is commonly used? So if you see the normal separation of the DNA by electrophoresis, the most common method is the agarose gel electrophoresis, and the agarose gel electrophoresis, here there is a utilization of the horizontal agarose gel electrophoresis. So here there is a loaded, and then after passing the currents there is a separation of the DNA molecules. So in this way, here the agarose gel with the horizontal apparatus is used for the separation of the DNA. If 2% of the agarose gel is used, what is the effective separation size of the range of the double stranded DNA molecules? So very commonly 1.1 to 3 kilobyte of the double stranded DNA molecules are separated in 2% of the agarose gel in the electrophoresis. Then function of beta mercaptoethanol in SDS page is, so if you see the function of this beta mercaptoethanol, then it is for the reduction of disulfide bonds in the protein. So this, it is a very specific type of the characteristic feature of the beta mercaptoethanol. So and hence it is a answer for this question. Then electrophoresis is not used for the separation of, electrophoresis is commonly used for the separation of the nucleic acid, separation of the proteins, and separation of the amino acids also, but it is not used for the separation of the lipids. So you should remember this one. In SDS page, that is sodium dodecyl sulfate polyacrylamide gel electrophoresis of protein separation, one SDS molecule will binds to. So when we have to see this complete process of the protein separation, then we find that here it always bind to 2 amino acid, and hence the every 2 amino acids are binds with that of the sodium dodecyl sulfate, and hence it becomes the answer for this question. In SDS page, the migration of protein is affected by, so if we see the migration of the protein, that will be affected by the size of the protein, because this size of the protein is responsible for the molecular weight of the protein in the electrophoresis. Which of the following is used as a tracking dye in SDS page? Every time in a electrophoresis, there is a utilization of the dyes to track the particular substance which is to be separated in the electrophoresis. And in SDS page, there is a most common dye which is to be used, and it is a bromophenol blue. But in addition to that, the xylene cyanol and the orange G is also used in the SDS page. So all the above becomes the answer for this question. For better resolution of minute protein bands in SDS page, which of the following staining method is advised? So the most common staining method is the staining with the help of silver nitrate in the SDS page, and hence the silver staining is most commonly used method of the staining in protein band formation. Then which of the following is true in relation to transmittance in spectroscopy? If you see the spectroscopy, then the 100% value of the T represent total transparent substance, and this is the correct one. Again, the zero value of the T, that is transmittance, represent total opaque substance, and this is also the correct one, and hence both A and B becomes the answer for this question. Then which of the following spectroscopy techniques is associated with absorption of the radiation by the analyte? So if we see the spectroscopic technique which is associated with the absorption of the radiation by the analyte, that is the ultraviolet visible light, that is the UV vis spectroscopy. Then which of the following statement is not correct? Not correct. Absorptivity changes with the intensity of the light. Then absorbance is independent of intensity of light. Then absorbance has no unit, and absorptivity is constant and depends on nature of the molecule. So if you see all these three statements, then absorptivity changes with intensity of light, this is wrong one. Absorption is independent to that of the light, correct one. There is no unit to the absorbance, and the absorptivity is a constant and depends on the nature of the molecules, because the molecules are responsible for the absorption of the light, and hence it is also the right one. And hence the correct answer for this question, which is not correct, that is the A1, that is absorptivity changes with the intensity of the light. Then which of the following are useful as a source of ultraviolet visible in spectroscopy? So if you see the xenon discharge lamp, then deuterium discharge lamp, and the tungsten filament lamp. So all these three are used as a source for the ultraviolet visible light in spectroscopy. So hence all the above becomes the answer for this question. The compound used to calibrate absorbance scale of the ultraviolet visible instrument, and you should remember this, that is the potassium dichromate is used to calibrate the absorbance scale. All of the following change the absorptivity of the sample except. So if you see the absorptivity of the sample, that is completely dependent upon the molecules, nature of molecules, then type of the molecules. So the concentration is not responsible to change the absorptivity. Then molecular structure is responsible to change the absorptivity. Then wavelength of radiation, that will also change, and even the temperature decrease and the increase in the temperature will also increase and decrease the absorptivity, and hence the concentration is the thing, except that the rest of the things are responsible to change the absorptivity of the sample. Then absorption spectra is a plot of, if we see the absorption spectra, then it is the absorption against the wavelength, and hence the B is the correct answer for this question. The solvatochromism is the ability of a substance to change color due to. So, if we see this solvatochromism, then it is a change in the solvent polarity, and hence it becomes the answer for this question. A sample exhibited has an absorbance 1.0 in ultraviolet visible spectroscopy, then the transmittance will be. So, usually it is found 10 times, and hence here the 10.0% is the transmittance if the absorbance is 1.0 in ultraviolet visible spectroscopy. Then in thin layer chromatography, the strongly phase or the stationary phase is made of, if you see the stationary phase, it is always solid, and the mobile phase is made of, and the mobile phase is always liquid. So, the first one will be the solid and second one will be the liquid, that will be the answer. So, the solid and liquid becomes the answer for this question. In TLC, that is thin layer chromatography, initially the sample is. So, in thin layer chromatography, there is a formation of thin layer on the glass plate of the silica gel. So, and then it is kept in a jar containing the mobile phase or the liquid. So, in contact with the mobile phase, here there is a presence of sample, and we must fill this jar or with the mobile phase below the sample. Hence, in not contact with the mobile phase. So, if you see this layer, it is not in contact with the sample. Then coated at the level of mobile phase and coated below the level of mobile phase. So, these are not much more related answers. So, here not in contact with the mobile phase, that becomes the answer for this question. Then which of the following is used as a spraying reagent in the paper chromatography? See now, here the paper chromatography, and in a paper chromatography there is a utilization of the ninhydrin solution as an indicator in the paper chromatography. Then which of the following type of paper chromatography does the mobile phase move horizontally over a circular sheet of the paper? Very commonly, the circular sheet of the paper is taken in a petri dish, and from the center then there is a movement of mobile phase to the periphery. So, such a type of the chromatography is a type of radial paper chromatography, because here the mobile phase run from the center towards its radii, that is periphery. Then which of the following are used as a spraying reagent in TLC? Earlier we have seen the ninhydrin in the paper chromatography, but in case of the TLC, the sulfuric acid, iodine solution and ninhydrin all are used as a spraying reagent, and hence all the above becomes the answer for this question. In stationary phase in thin layer chromatography is, just I have told you, there are the glass plates, and on this glass plate here the silica gel is applied for the formation of the stationary phase, and hence it is the correct answer. Then chromatography is a physical method that is used to separate and analyze. If you see the chromatography, either maybe the thin layer chromatography or the paper chromatography or other methods of the chromatography which are very commonly used for the separation of the complex compounds, and hence the complex mixtures are commonly separated with the help of different chromatographic methods, and hence it is a answer. No doubt this unit is somewhat difficult to the student, and even the answers of every question with different reasons is not possible within very short period of the time, because it will consume a big time for these 60 questions. Hence the explanation of some of the question is avoided in this lecture. But if the students want to find out the lectures, then you can go through the theory for the correct answers of the questions which are discussed here in the lecture. So thank you very much for your kind listening of this complete lecture on different techniques which are used in the life sciences. If you like this lecture, then kindly like, share and subscribe our YouTube channel Botany for You, and also press bell icon for the alerts of every lecture to be uploaded on different life sciences titles. Thanks a lot once again.